Welcome to Agency for Agents, a podcast for real estate team leaders and independent brokerage owners looking to maximize profits, effectiveness, and gain freedom for their team and business. Your hosts, Christine Andreasen and Aaron Hendon, have been running one of the most successful real estate teams in the Seattle area for more than 8 years. They know building a winning team means finding ways to empower, nurture, train, and develop individual agents to discover their own power, their own agency. On the podcast, Christine and Aaron interview thought leaders in real estate and personal growth to help you impact both your performance and your teams. We know it takes a lot, and leaders and brokers that crack that code reap the rewards of success greater than any they could ever achieve on their own.
There she is. Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you.
It's great to see you.
Nice to finally meet you. I've heard about you for years.
Have you guys never met? That's craziness.
We've never met, right?
Never met.
No.
Oh my God. Get up here, Robert.
Now we meet.
Okay.
Figured you guys would appreciate the extra time too. And, basically, I wanted you two on the podcast because I want to be able to pick your brains and have it recorded. That's literally it. I mean,
our own personal interest.
This is such a personal interest to me. It's shocking. And Rob and I we've spoken multiple times over the years, regarding your business and how you've grown it and the integrity with which you've done it and the speed and the depth and, just the whole thing. You really are like given where our relationship started, right? Given our background of relatedness back, when I was leading conversations for you, to have watched you come out and freaking rock this way is so fulfilling. It's unbelievable. And all I want to do is copy you. All I want to do is be like you when I grow up. Really, I'm telling you 100%. I want to steal everything that you have.
And this podcast really is designed for brokers, small broker owners, team leaders. We're not talking about how to sell 20 more houses. We're talking about how to live a life empowered, how to empower the people that work with you and for you, how to really have your life be a fulfillment of that which you exist for.
You guys both nailed it. Don't get into real estate to help buyers or sellers unless you truly have a passion to help buyers or sellers, right? You got to have a passion for I don't want them to work with anyone else but me because I'm going to go to the nth degree to get them what they want, right? If you don't have that drive, if you don't have that passion, you're going to be part of the statistic. You're going to be part of the percentage, nearly 90% now, that are out of the business within just a few years, right? And so it's no different than being in that, that just escalates into, okay, you start a team, right? You have to become fanatical about helping people grow, helping people learn the skills that will make them successful in real estate. And, Aaron, you know this, the reason Cambria and I got into real estate and starting a team, starting a brokerage to begin with was a fulfillment of that passion. We wanted to be a part of it. We wanted to create an organization and be part of an organization, be the catalyst for people coming on board and literally their lives transforming as a result of being a part of our organization.
It's awesome.
And I'll say it again, if you don't have that kind of drive, that kind of passion, it'll chew you up and spit you out, just like the real estate business.
I agree.
God, that's so good, Rob. I mean, I don't know that and it's funny because now I think there's probably nothing else to say.
That was a short podcast.
But really, I was just looking at the people on our team. I'm like, yeah, you can see it where there's actually a passion to be that contribution. It shows up. So Rob, when you're talking about bringing agents on and into Haven as a brokerage, what's the interview process like? And do you decline agents or is it just throw them at the wall and see who sticks? They'll prove it. Where's the?
I interview about 30 people a month.
And how many do we bring on?
We'll take on two to three.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 to 3.
And is this, do you have a team inside your brokerage or is it? You have a team inside the brokerage. So when you're interviewing 30, they could either be on the team or in the brokerage.
Correct. Yeah.
Where do you get 30 people a month?
Well, a couple things. We've got a pretty intense branding campaign. We have about 36 radio commercials that play a day. And they feature some of our top agents. And so I'll just give you an example. We've got 7 agents, our top 7 agents, and they all shot a commercial. And the commercial goes like, "Hi, I'm Hannah Masters with Haven Real Estate Group. And in the last year, I've had the privilege and opportunity to help over 30 families find their home. And I'm so grateful that I chose a brokerage that provides the support, training, and tools that lead to me being not only successful, but me being able to pursue my passion, which is helping people," right? And then I jump in and just say, look, if you're a real estate agent or you're considering being a real estate agent and you feel like this kind of training and support would be beneficial to you, give us a call. So we get about 4 to 5 inquiries a week from that. And then, our other branding and marketing, we have videos, we have our agents talk about the tools and the training and the support that they get here. Awesome. So it's just a consistent
drip right out there.
Yeah.
Good. It's awesome.
And those people are coming into the brokerage, and then you pick from the brokerage to join the team?
Yes.
Got it.
And then we also, the first step is them coming to our Tuesday training session. So that way they get an idea of what they can expect week after week from us. Because if they don't like the first meeting, there's no reason to even move forward.
Right. We do something similar, like come check us out.
Yeah, we do look at mindset. We start our meetings with what are you grateful for?
Yeah.
And we go from there and we talk about personal development. We talk about that this is not about sales. This job is about being an advocate. So if you think this is about sales, you're in the wrong organization. You just need to go.
Awesome.
So that they get that from day one, and we won't even really sit down and talk to them until after they've gone to that meeting. And we'll have people that will come to a meeting and then they'll leave and they never come back.
Right.
Which is
good. That's good. Right? They don't waste your time.
But I'll tell you, that took a learning curve to learn. Early in our brokerage, when we were 15 agents, it was a race to 50, right? And, so we got to about 35, 40 agents. And what we realized is because our focus was numbers, that then we had a lot of drama to clean up. We just had an unbelievable amount of weeding out to do and problems and challenges. And so we took a step back and we realized we want people who have a passion and desire to grow in their lives, and that can make the distinction, the correlation that their growth is going to have a direct and proportionate correlation to how much they serve others, right? The extent to which they serve others. And frankly, look, that's a rarity, right? Yeah. I mean, if you look at it from our landmark days, right, it was that was a pretty good measure to have 25% of the candidates in a room actually register. And so we honestly apply much of the techniques that we learned here.
Yeah. Tell me about the difference between the brokerage and the team and how that works, given it's your brokerage and your team.
So a big difference is just the amount of the leads that you're given, and then the support. There's a mentor on top when you're in the team. And so really it's more of, if somebody is experienced and they have a large sphere and they've got a lot of repeat clients, a lot of times they want our training and the motivation and the atmosphere and the culture here, but they are able to, they don't need as much support and hand-holding. So then they would go on to the brokerage side.
Sure.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. And the splits on the team? Or is it variable?
The split on the team is 50-50. And then on the individual side, if they're an individual or solo agent, it's a 90-10 with a 20,000 cap. Now, I'll tell you this, right? I think the thing that made us successful in both respects, right, is that early on we're training our agents that it's a race to 100. In other words, if you can close 100 transactions, that pretty much sets up your career, sets up the longevity and sustainability of your career, right? Because the average happy client, put an asterisk next to happy client. The average happy client is going to ultimately refer an additional 4 pieces of business. And so there's 2 things about what makes our team so successful. Number one, we realized early on that the value of a single transaction is not that transaction.
Right.
The value of a single transaction on average is 4 to 5. So we started doing our marketing with respect to what's the lifetime value of a client to the firm, And we focused on the percentage we were willing to spend up front in order to secure that client. And so, look, we basically took the Amazon model, right? Focus on market share, focus on delivering quality to the client, and then we would take market share. Right. And so what most, it's interesting that especially agents that transition from the 50-50 model to the independent model, it's interesting because all of a sudden, they hear us talk about that our cost of acquisition for that first client, often the firm loses money. Right. Often the firm loses money, right? But our focus has always been the long game. And so it's interesting when an agent makes the transition from the team to an independent, and if they skip any steps, right, they don't have 100 past clients, they don't have that sphere, if they don't have a marketing platform in place, all of a sudden, they go, ooh, I'm going from a 50-50 split to a 90-10.
90% of zero is zero.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden they realize Rob and Cambria weren't kidding when they said the firm will often take the loss on that first transaction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the agents have so rarely have an idea of what the expenses are. Yeah. Unless that's got to be part of the education experience for them, is to really understand, because they don't understand. So when you bring people in, what's the agreement that they make for their training on the team versus the brokerage? So you have Tuesdays are, I assume, for the entire brokerage and the team. Mm-hmm. Those are your Tuesday trainings. And what other trainings and what else do you guys offer for
the team? We do a Tuesday training that's for everybody. We do a Wednesday training in our Spokane office, and then we repeat that same training in our Coeur d'Alene office. But if it has anything to do with legal forms or anything, then we tailor it for the Idaho market versus the Washington market. Yeah. And then we usually do a 6-week mastery course. Yeah. All of those are available to anybody, but they're more tailored to people on the team. So it's not like somebody on our brokerage couldn't go to something if they wanted to. On top of that, in the team, until you've done at least 5 transactions or your first 90 days, you have a mentor, and you stay inside a mentor group. That makes a big difference as well.
It's great. That's good. Every time we do one of these, we're like, yep, okay, good. We're on the right track. Oh, good. We're doing
we have mentors. So do you have one-on-one mentors? You said mentor group. Tell me what that is.
Usually it's anywhere from 2 to 4 agents will be inside the mentor group.
And that's with one lead agent mentoring them? Yeah, and then does that lead agent get an override on anything that they produce?
What we do is...
Aaron. Easy.
You know that check I was writing you borrow for $4,000?
We do extra training, but they do have more lead opportunities. Just for instance,
the mentors.
Yep. I'm about to send out a mail out to 15,000 people. And the number that will be on that will be for our mentor line. Yeah. And only they have access to that phone number.
So we have 7 mentors, and Cambria and I do more one-on-one coaching with our mentors, right? And so to be a mentor, they had to do 20 plus transactions in the previous year. They had to have recommendations from both staff and their peers. And, how we positioned or how we pitched the idea of attaining a mentor role was that additional training, right? But typically what happens is an agent will hit a plateau within their own production. Mm-hmm. And we've showcased that the catalyst to actually taking your production to the next level is the level to which you contribute to your peers. That's awesome. And after having several 6-month sessions now, on average, our mentors increase their productivity by 220%. Mm-hmm. That's their pay, right? And after now several sessions of this, they're actually seeing oh gosh, this really does benefit me.
Well, the other thing is so we actually have where people can start teams inside of Haven if they want to. And a lot of our mentors are interested in eventually breaking off, being independent, and starting their own team. And we want to support them in that. And so part of being a mentor is learning how they're going to do that.
Now,
right, training them to lead.
Here's what's crazy about that. Everyone aspires to leadership, right? And, there's a very distinct difference between being a productive individual to now managing others to now leading. Yeah. Very different skill sets. Huge. And a lot of them will think that because they're a high producer, that those skills, that they can just rely on those skills to now move into, running a small group or running a team. And what about, I'm going to say about 60 to 70% of the mentors realize after going through a 6-month, where they're a mentor for 6 months, what about 60% of them realize is, oh shit, this is a lot of work. Like this, I don't know if I want to transition to starting my own team because it's inundating, right? And so that actually, in reality, that actually benefits us as well, because then they turn around and go, hey, listen, I like to mentor an agent or two, but they sort of realize the complexities involved with moving and inspiring and leading others.
Yeah, they self-select. That's really great.
Yep.
Listening to a great Freakonomics radio podcast about leadership and the Peter Principle, where Peter Principle is that everyone rises to their level of incompetence. And which is a funny thing when you say it, right? And it was meant as a sort of an inside joke when Lawrence Peters wrote it. Lawrence Peters is a Canadian economist and professor, and he wrote the Peters Principle, which is literally that people rise to their level of incompetence. But in examining it, it's what you're talking about is that first of all, there's a culture in business that relates to, if you can do it, you can lead it. And so therefore people that can do the skill get into leadership, and now they find themselves incompetent. But that was the natural next step in the progression. It wasn't like they were looking for someone incompetent. It's just they turn out to be incompetent at the skill that's needed for leadership. It's one of the things that's involved with that whole scenario. But that's what you're speaking to, is that, and then they can self-select themselves back down a level, which is a brilliant model for you to give them the chance to do it and see if it's something that they do, in fact, have that skill set or they're interested in acquiring. And if not, see, that's one of the reasons why we have that model in American business, is because people naturally assume I should be a leader next. That would be the natural path. I need someplace to expand. So to let them go up, fail, prove to themselves, and then come back on their own is great. I love it.
It's interesting that you say that. When we started our first brokerage, actually, while we were building out our second brokerage, the owner of the brokerage that we had left stopped by, and we have a very amiable relationship. And he told me, gosh, I'm flabbergasted to see you now expanding into another state, right? And he said, we all sort of bet against you, right?
Good.
And he said, what is it ultimately that had you guys decide to start a brokerage? And I said, well, that's an interesting question. I'll tell you, the biggest catalyst is when I asked, 40, 50 broker owners, what had you start a brokerage, right? And listen, this plays out too if you're a team leader as well, right? What had you start a brokerage? And I'm going to say about 95% of them said that basically they didn't want to answer to anybody else. They wanted to retain 100% of their commissions. They don't want to answer to anybody else. Mm-hmm. And so it really it compelled us to double down on what we were doing, because listen, we're in real estate, right? But that's not really what the business we're in. We're in the human development, personal development business, period, right? We invest in people, and we really work at elevating their skills. And in addition to elevating their skills, elevating for them what they believe within themselves is possible. And that's the business we're in. That's what we focus on. And it's so exhilarating because of its challenges, right?
Yeah.
People will fight you every step of the way. That's just the human condition, right? They'll fight you every step of the way. Shit, I did that with Aaron, right? I remember Aaron telling me long, long ago, this was in the leadership program, the introduction to leadership program. He says, I used to be able to mock Aaron's voice really, really well.
Easy.
He says, you're spending more time internally and externally pissing and moaning about the very thing that you committed to doing than it would take to actually do the damn thing.
It's awesome.
And my initial response internally was to tell him to F off. But after thinking about it for a minute, I went, yeah, you know what? He's right. He's absolutely right. Right. And so the moment that I started focusing on shortening that time, right? Because it's not like, every day we get up and we've got things.
You got whatever you got. Yeah.
We got things that you're committed to accomplishing, right? And the human condition is like, for a moment.
Yeah.
Right. And so you just kind of get reconnected to what the passion is and why we're in this business and the difference that we set out to make. And it really drives us. I had a single mom that was working for another company. And in 2 years, she closed 3 transactions with another company. She was thinking about quitting. So she was with us for 6 months. And she closed, I believe, 12 transactions in that 6 months, right?
Nice.
12 transactions with us in 6 months. She'd done 3 over the course of 2 years with the previous brokerage, right? And she comes in and she tearfully tells, walks into my office, tearfully tells me, I put both my kids in private school. And if you'd asked me a year ago if that ever was going to be possible, I would have told you no way.
Oh, isn't that so great, right?
So that's
why we do it.
It's really great, Rob. I mean, so I know Christine's got to bolt in a second, but we don't have to bolt when she goes.
Yeah, you guys can edit me out in pieces and it'll just look like I was in the back.
I don't know how much more. I don't want to take up a lot of more of your time either. But the thing that I'm just moved by and the thing that I'm taking away that I love and why we do these podcasts is that so that I can take things away is, that keeping true to the vision of developing human beings that you guys have expressed. I don't think there's the splits and the team and the brokerage model and the trainings when they are details that fill in based on the particular circumstances, but they are all an expression of an authentic commitment to the business you're in. And the business you're in is distinct from the business that the broker that came by that was betting against you was in.
It's awesome.
So
I really do have to bolt. You guys don't have to hang up, but it was so great to finally meet you. I hope we do it again. We'll do it again soon.
She booked a listing appointment. It's going to take her 10 more minutes longer to get there.
And we found out there's traffic.
And you can't be late. Can't be late to a listing appointment, right? That is obviously one of the big deals. So anyway, guys, I don't really have it. That little piece, Robin, you and I had never really talked about that. I don't think it's a little piece, but it's the thing that came out there at the end. I had never heard it if we did talk about it. And I think you'll like this too, because you're a big fan. Chris Angel and I, he was on last week, and he and I are working on a project to create a program for agents like us, where people that have done the 100, people that aren't looking to sell 6 more FSBOs or 350K more to your pipeline, that kind of stuff, that are looking to contribute, looking to ways to provide leadership to our own pipelines, looking to our legacy. And we're just in the beginning stages of playing with it. But what you just said is so foundational.
Look, here's the thing. We met with last year the CFO of Realogy. And, it was an interesting thing as we were talking about, because here's a guy who has access to, I think Realogy has 7 different brands, right? Century 21, Coldwell Banker, a bunch of them. And so given that's the fact, he's got access to like the varying models, between their tens or hundreds of thousands of offices, whatever the case may be. And there was an interesting insight that I had that came out of that conversation. And what I realized is, the model for a team or the model for a brokerage, they're all relatively similar.
Yeah.
A little bit bigger split here. When we looked at like the tools that were available,
right.
When we were looking at starting a brokerage, we interviewed, the idea of opening up a box and taking out your training manual and your contracts and putting your sign up and all of that was really attractive.
Yeah.
And yet when we interviewed all of the major models, all of them, there wasn't anything that really rang out as spectacular in comparison to the others. Some had, a little bit better marketing material. Some had a little bit better in-house training programs. Some had a little bit better split like that, right? Mm-hmm. And what we realized is while everyone's trying to reinvent the wheel with respects to the brokerage or team model, what was missing was the level of intention of developing leaders within the organization. Mm-hmm. Period. That was what was missing. Right? There's lots of organizations and franchises that tout training, right? But it's really focused on training that's designed to capture more buyers and sellers.
Absolutely.
Period. It just is, right? And most of them are teaching outdated models because frankly, building funnels and retargeting and remarketing and videos and all that shit is hard to do, right? Yeah. So what they're teaching is 10 days of pain, call people until they hire you, fire you, or die. They're just regurgitating the same old shit from our industry from the last 30 years, right? And what we found is that the side effect of really focusing on elevating people's lives, elevating for them what they feel is possible, shifting their mindset from one of survival to one of creating a life that really works for them, like focusing on that, the side effect is they're much more enthusiastic about their career. They're much more enthusiastic and grateful and gracious with their clients. And so literally the side effect of focusing on them and focusing on their development is that they perform at a higher level and they have a greater degree of satisfaction within their career. And then the other side effect of that is it builds a phenomenal culture. And unfortunately, we're in a culture now, it builds a culture within our office, right? Within our real estate office. But unfortunately, like if you go to a lot of different, and I've been to a lot of brokerages, right? Brokerage offices, they're cold, they're quiet, and they're sterile. And versus if you visit one of our offices, everyone is sitting around, one of our large conference tables in our open area. There's hugs, there's high fives. There's just a lot greater energy and affection and a collaboration amongst our agents because they grow together.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think you said it, we're not in the real estate. It's funny because real estate is a thing, we're not in the real estate business. We're in the people business. And our people as the team leaders or the broker owners are, I just want to end this with how you started it. It's just, you've got to be fanatical about empowering people or what's the point? And you got to hire people that are fanatical about helping people buy or sell their homes, or what's the point? Otherwise it's it's another job and it's going to be brutal. It's funny. And those people self-select themselves out of the business. The people that aren't that way wind up just failing out because they came in because they liked, I can schedule my own hours or something.
Yeah. I'll tell you.
Schedule your own 90 hours.
My business coach often uses the phrase, he says there's so much opportunity in the real estate business in terms of growing teams or growing a brokerage because the majority of brokerage owners and team owners are mailing it in, right? So I finally asked him, what do you mean by mailing it in, right? Well, we've ridden an economy that's done really well in the last 12 or 13 years, right? And what he says is that when the high tide recedes, you're going to see a lot of people that are out in the water touting a big game and they don't have any pants on, right? And it really strikes me because, as you lead a brokerage or you lead a team, it's challenging. It's tough. People's personalities are different. Their levels of resistance are different. Their backgrounds and their filters are different. And so you really have to tailor it to the individual. And, there's just not, the opportunity is that there's not a lot of broker owners or team owners that are willing to go that deep, right? There's not a lot of team owners, brokerage owners that are willing to do the work and grow themselves and get the coaching and training that they need in order to make a difference for the people that they're serving. Yeah.
And I think it's all it always shows up. All right. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time. I mean, it's, I know that you always pick up the phone whenever I call anyway, but just to be able to do this with you and, take care of you. And I know we've exchanged agents in the past, from so glad about Emily. She's just so
awesome.
She's really killing it.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Abundant Life Podcast, brought to you by Christine & Company and eXp Realty, the global online brokerage powered by top agents and cutting-edge technology. If you liked what you heard, consider subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. Your hosts have been award-winning brokers Christine Andreasen and Aaron Hendon. For more on them, visit christineandcompany.com.